Most people move through life with the quiet conviction that they are in control of themselves. They believe their choices are deliberate, their opinions carefully formed, and their emotions fully understood. Yet beneath this certainty lies a far more unsettling reality. Much of what drives human behavior originates from a place that remains hidden from conscious awareness. Imagine an iceberg drifting across a vast ocean. The visible portion appears solid and complete, yet the greater mass exists beneath the surface, unseen and mysterious. The conscious mind is much the same. What you know about yourself, your name, beliefs, ambitions, and memories is only a small fragment of a much larger psychological landscape. Beneath awareness, countless forces are at work. Forgotten experiences continue shaping present reactions. Emotions that were never fully felt remain active in the depths of the psyche. Unresolved conflicts, buried fears, and rejected desires influence perception without announcing their presence. They become silent architects of behavior. Consider a moment when you reacted far more intensely than a situation seemed to require. A simple comment from another person suddenly filled you with anger. A minor rejection lingered in your thoughts for days. A seemingly insignificant event triggered anxiety you could not explain. In such moments, it is tempting to believe the external event is the true cause of your reaction. Yet often, the event merely touched something older, something already living within you. The unconscious rarely speaks in direct language. It reveals itself through emotional patterns, recurring mistakes, dreams, impulses, and inexplicable attractions or aversions. It communicates through symbols rather than logic, through feelings rather than arguments. Because of this, many people spend their lives fighting battles whose origins they never understand. There is also an inner conflict that quietly shapes the human experience. One part of the mind seeks order, certainty, and control. Another contains instincts, emotions, and truths that do not easily fit the image we have constructed of ourselves. The tension between these forces creates much of the psychological suffering people encounter, yet the purpose of becoming aware of the unconscious is not to eliminate it. The goal is to begin a dialogue with what has been hidden. For only when the unseen becomes visible can a person begin to understand who is truly living there. Life, the deepest forces are often the ones we never notice. If much of our life is directed by forces outside. Conscious awareness. An important question emerges. What exactly is hiding in those unseen regions of the mind? The answer is not simply forgotten memories or suppressed emotions. Deep within the psyche exists a hidden figure that follows us everywhere, yet remains largely unknown. It is the side of ourselves we learn to reject. From early childhood, every person begins constructing an identity. We discover which qualities are rewarded and which are discouraged. Certain emotions are welcomed, while others are met with disapproval. A child may learn that anger is dangerous, vulnerability is weakness, ambition is selfish, or sensitivity is something to conceal. Gradually, the personality adapts. It presents the traits that earn acceptance and pushes unwanted aspects into the darkness. But what is rejected does not disappear. The mind has a remarkable ability to hide what it does not wish to see, yet it cannot destroy it. Every denied impulse, every disowned emotion, every trait that conflicts with the image we hold of ourselves continues to exist beneath the surface. Over time, these hidden elements gather in what can be called the shadow. Many people misunderstand the shadow. They assume it contains only darkness, cruelty, or destructive impulses. In reality, the shadow contains everything the conscious personality refuses to acknowledge. Within it may exist anger and envy, but also creativity, passion, courage, authenticity, and untapped potential. Anything that threatens the story we tell ourselves can become part of the shadow. This creates a profound paradox. The more strongly we identify with being one type of person, the more intensely we bury everything that contradicts that identity. The individual who prides themselves on kindness may secretly harbor resentment. The person who appears confident may be hiding deep insecurity. The one who seems perfectly controlled may be carrying enormous rage beneath the surface. The shadow grows, powerful precisely because it remains. Unseen. What remains unconscious does not stop influencing behavior. Instead, it begins operating indirectly. It slips into our decisions, relationships, fears, and desires. It appears in moments when we act against our own values and later wonder, why did I do that? It emerges when emotions suddenly overwhelm reason, or when certain situations provoke reactions that seem larger than the circumstances themselves. The greatest danger is not possessing a shadow. Every human being has one. The real danger is believing that you do not. For what is hidden does not cease to exist. It waits. If the shadow remains hidden from direct awareness, how can it possibly reveal itself? The answer is both fascinating and unsettling. The shadow rarely appears as a voice saying, "This is who you truly are." Instead, it disguises itself. It finds expression through the people around us. What we refuse to see within often appears before us in the outside world. Think about the individuals who provoke unusually strong reactions in you. Not simple disagreements, but intense emotional responses. The person whose arrogance infuriates you. The stranger whose success secretly disturbs you. The individual you cannot stop admiring, envying, or judging. Such reactions often contain clues to something deeper than the person standing before you. The mind possesses a remarkable defense mechanism. Rather than confronting qualities that threaten our self-image, it unconsciously projects them onto others. In doing so, it creates the illusion that the conflict exists entirely outside ourselves. A person who cannot acknowledge their own capacity for aggression may become obsessed with the aggression of others. Someone who secretly longs for recognition may condemn others for seeking attention. An individual who has buried their own vulnerability may feel irritated by emotional openness wherever they encounter it. Projection allows the shadow to remain hidden while continuing to influence. Perception. This is why two people can witness the same event and experience it completely differently. They are not merely seeing the world. They are seeing the world through the lens of their unconscious. The external situation becomes colored by inner realities they do not yet understand. Perhaps the most powerful projections occur in close relationships. We often believe we are reacting to our partners, friends, family members, or rivals exactly as they are. Yet many conflicts are amplified by unconscious material seeking expression. The qualities we fight against, chase after, or become fascinated by may reveal more about our own psyche than about the people themselves. This realization can be deeply uncomfortable. It challenges the comforting belief that our suffering is always caused by external forces. It suggests that some of our strongest emotional reactions are mirrors, reflecting hidden aspects of our own nature. Yet within this discomfort lies an opportunity for profound self-discovery. Every intense judgment can become a question. Every emotional trigger can become an invitation. Every irrational attraction or resentment can become a doorway leading inward. Instead of asking, "What is wrong with them?" we begin asking, "What part of myself is trying to be seen?" The moment projection is recognized, something extraordinary happens. The energy once spent condemning, fearing, or idealizing others begins returning to its true source. And there, behind the face of another, we finally encounter ourselves. As we begin to recognize the shadow and reclaim the projections scattered across our lives, another question emerges. If these hidden forces are influencing us so deeply, where do they originate? Are they merely personal, shaped by individual experiences and memories? Or do they belong to something far older and far larger than ourselves? Beneath the personal unconscious lies a deeper layer of the psyche, one that does not belong to a single individual. It is a vast psychological inheritance carried by every human being. Long before we learn language, adopt beliefs, or form identities, we are already connected to patterns that have shaped human experience across centuries. This deeper realm reveals itself through myths, dreams, symbols, and recurring stories that appear across cultures separated by oceans and generations. Again and again, humanity tells the same stories in different forms. The journey into darkness, the battle between order and chaos, the search for meaning, the encounter with the unknown. These patterns persist because they are not merely stories. They are reflections of structures embedded within the human psyche itself. Consider how often people find themselves repeating emotional dramas they never consciously chose. One person continually seeks approval from authority figures. Another repeatedly enters relationships that end in betrayal. Someone else spends years chasing power, only to discover an overwhelming sense of emptiness. These patterns often feel intensely personal, yet they echo themes that have existed throughout human history. The psyche does not emerge as a blank slate. Hidden within it are ancient tendencies, instincts, and symbolic patterns that quietly influence how we interpret reality. They shape our fears, desires, ambitions, and conflicts in ways we rarely recognize. What feels like a purely individual struggle may actually be connected to a much larger human story. This is why certain dreams can feel strangely familiar, as though they carry meanings older than memory. It is why particular symbols appear with profound emotional force, despite having no obvious connection to daily life. Something deep within us recognizes them, even when the conscious mind does not. The modern world often encourages people to see themselves as isolated individuals, separate from the past and disconnected from one another. Yet the deeper psyche tells a different story. Beneath our unique personalities lies a shared psychological foundation, linking us to countless generations who wrestled with the same fears, desires, and mysteries. To understand yourself fully, you must look beyond the boundaries of your personal history. For hidden within your private struggles are echoes of something ancient. The depths of the mind are older than the person who inhabits them. If ancient psychological patterns live within us, then they do not remain buried in silence. They reveal themselves continuously, often through the very emotions we struggle to understand. Most people view emotions as reactions to external events. Someone says the wrong thing, and anger appears. A relationship ends, and sadness follows. A threat emerges, and fear takes hold. While this explanation contains some truth, it rarely tells the whole story. The intensity of an emotion is often shaped by something far deeper than the event that triggered it. An emotional trigger is like a key turning in a locked door. The event itself may be small, but it unlocks something hidden within the psyche. Suddenly, feelings emerge that seem disproportionate to the situation. A brief criticism feels like a personal attack. A moment of rejection feels unbearable. A disagreement becomes a battle. In these moments, we are not only reacting to the present, we are responding to layers of unconscious material that have been waiting beneath. Awareness. This is why certain experiences affect us so profoundly, while others barely leave. Mark. The unconscious stores emotional energies that have never been fully understood or integrated. Old wounds, forgotten humiliations, unresolved grief, hidden fears, and unexpressed desires continue to exist long after the conscious mind has moved on. They do not disappear with time alone. Instead, they wait for circumstances that resemble the original conflict, then rise to the surface disguised as reactions to the present moment. Many people spend their lives fighting these emotions or attempting to suppress them. Yet the more an emotion is rejected, the more power it tends to acquire. What is pushed into darkness does not vanish. It seeks another path of expression. This is why emotional awareness requires more than simply controlling feelings. It requires curiosity. Instead of asking, "How do I get rid of this emotion?" a deeper question emerges. What is this emotion trying to reveal? Anger may conceal wounded pride or hidden vulnerability. Jealousy may expose desires we refuse to acknowledge. Fear may point toward parts of life we have avoided confronting. Even recurring anxiety can sometimes signal an inner conflict that remains unresolved. When approached with honesty, emotions become messengers from the depths of the psyche. They reveal where the shadow still lives, where old patterns continue to operate, and where unconscious forces are influencing conscious life. The goal is not to eliminate these emotions, but to listen to them without becoming possessed by them. For every powerful feeling carries a message from a part of yourself that has not yet been fully seen. And what remains unseen continues to shape your destiny. By now, a troubling picture has begun to emerge. Much of what we call personality is influenced by unconscious forces. The shadow quietly shapes behavior from behind the scenes. Projections distort our perception of others. Ancient psychological patterns guide our desires and fears. Emotions reveal conflicts we rarely understand. The question is no longer whether these hidden forces exist. The question is what happens when we finally turn toward them. Most people spend their lives attempting to avoid the darker regions of the psyche. They seek distraction instead of reflection, certainty instead of self-examination. The mind naturally resists anything that threatens the image it has carefully constructed. We prefer to see ourselves as rational, consistent, and fully aware. Yet genuine self-knowledge begins precisely where these comforting illusions begin to break apart. The encounter with the hidden self is rarely dramatic. More often, it begins with a moment of unsettling recognition. A person notices the same destructive relationship pattern repeating once again. They realize that their strongest judgments reveal something about themselves. They discover that fears they blamed on the world have roots within their own psyche. Slowly, the familiar story they have told about themselves starts to feel incomplete. This realization can be deeply uncomfortable. To see oneself clearly requires confronting contradictions. It means accepting that kindness may coexist with resentment, courage with fear, love with selfishness, and wisdom with ignorance. The human psyche is not a collection of separate parts arranged neatly into categories of good and bad. It is a living paradox, filled with tensions that demand acknowledgement rather than denial. Many people believe transformation means becoming someone different. Yet psychological growth is often the opposite. It is not the creation of a new self, but the discovery of the self that has always existed beneath layers of avoidance and illusion. As hidden aspects are brought into awareness, something begins to change. The shadow loses much of its power because it no longer operates in darkness. Emotional reactions become easier to understand. Projections begin to dissolve. Inner conflicts that once seemed overwhelming reveal their true origins. The individual becomes less divided against themselves. This process does not remove suffering from life. Human existence remains filled with uncertainty, loss, and struggle. But there is a profound difference between being unconsciously controlled by hidden forces and becoming conscious of their presence. The person who refuses to confront their inner darkness remains its servant. The person who willingly enters that darkness begins to understand it, and in understanding it, they reclaim the life that was once being lived for them. The darkness was never the enemy, it was the doorway.